Hello, how's everybody doing? This is an ex-Jehovah Witness video. I haven't did one in a while, but I've been working on this subject for a long time. It was just so big. I mean, it's very big. It's pretty much everything that we've been talking about ever since I started this YouTube. And it's funny because it's how everything develops because it's about everything that I've learned, all the conclusions that I've drawn. But this one is going to be on the difference between, or how can I say, Jesus's. Okay, it's about the Jewish people who loved Jesus, who put the palm branches down, who people like who came in contact with him. He had a lot of followers. I mean, so many people who listened to him, um, people who listened to him, people when he was dying, when he had to carry the cross, and the people who were lined up and wanting to touch him, crying for him. It's about all those people, about Mary's friends who agreed with her and who believed in Jesus also. The apostles, all their family members that agree with them and that followed him also. It's about all those people that we never even think about. I know why we don't think about them because nowadays, and when I say things, I'm just going to say them because I learned from so many things. I think, like for instance, I've learned from the things that I learned about today's Jews, for instance. And I know that they're very sensitive, but I talked about everybody. The things that were negative about all groups of people that I've learned from. I don't say anything like negative, but everybody has, as far as I can see, the different groups. I say things, I mean, I have a lot of friends from France, and, you know, there's some things I don't agree with about about the Italians, about all the people that we have to learn from each other. And pretty much everybody takes it um, in the right way. Like, for instance, okay, I take it from everybody. I learn from everybody, from the stars. When I say stars, I mean like famous people, people who are recognized, writers, everything. Even from, like, for instance, I even learned some things from a book that I read, Kuntz, okay? Because I read this book and I said it on one of my YouTubes. I read this book about these two people who were not kind of hypnotized. Yeah, this famous psychiatrist. He was very evil, and he used to, I forgot the name of it, but I said about it. But I'm just telling you that I learned from that too, because I figured that because when I read his book, I he had to do research in order to write the book, and I took out points that he learned. I could pick out the points. You already know that. So anyway, I learned from that also from everybody. So I'm getting ready to say this. Who I'm learning from, like for instance, Kanye West. Like I didn't really like him that much because I didn't know too much about him. It's funny how you don't like it's easy to not like somebody when you don't know anything about them. But as he kept going on, he would say things about certain cultures, and everybody would be like in shock. And I think I mentioned a little bit about this before. And but they would say it, and he says about a lot of negative things about black people also. And I never really. I just say it was him. I mean, like for instance, I know that famous people and stars don't a lot of times, um, how can I say, uh, explain things like we explain to each other, and they have like this broader sense of being able to say whatever they want. So, I mean, I didn't really get offended by anything he said, and I tried to find some truth out of it. I try and find truth. Not when I say try to find truth, I try to find where did they get this ideas, you know? But that's what I want to say, because some of these things I'm going to say is going to be about Jewish people. I mean, I'm going to say today's Jew, because a lot of people, it's it's bigger than, and it was a very important part of my learning experience with this video that I'm doing now. And the reason why I have to say today's Jewish people, because it's on tape and everything, on my comments of not just here but in different comments and everything. And I think God wanted me to learn for myself, but it was more like a block that I had that I couldn't. And this goes to the Dean Koontz book, because everybody in every society, I'm sorry, ah, some kind of hair or something. But it seems like in every society, everybody wants their group to be like, like they're superior. It's just human nature. And I know that from this things that I learned about the Jewish things, I mean, things that I learned, especially about this year, the things I learned about Jewish people and the Jewish society. And it's hard to speak, I'm sorry for doing that, but it's hard to speak about them because I noticed that they just have Jewish and that's it. But it's not like that. And from all these things I learned all these years doing this Jehovah Witness and ex-Jehovah Witness, I find that sometimes you have to break things down that hasn't been broke down for everybody else, So I'm giving you that reason why I'm saying Jewish today, okay? Because I learned that, and it was a very important lesson, because I was like almost worshiping these people, which is not good. And it's funny that I never related it to God. And I have a communication with God, but I think He wanted me to. I mean, I didn't say that what He wanted me to do, but He was guiding me through this answer, and this answer wasn't. It wasn't like simple. So it took the things I learned from you all, the things I learned from everything, for me to understand this. And I remember when, like I was saying, Kanye had some problems with, Jewish thoughts that he had. And I remember online talking to the people, and I was going, this is why would he say this? I mean, why is he saying this? And one comment person said, I think he's got something there. And a lot of people were like, just like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? What's going on in our minds, Some information that we're not missing. Because like as a black, and I'm black, and I know about how black people think from my friends and stuff. And I noticed that we always thought that they were like special people. And all the things that they have done, I mean, I'm not saying them, I'm not saying in a prejudice type way, but personally, things that happened to me as far as with gay, I mean, not with gay, with Jewish people, I've always thought, and this is what I'm saying from the culture that I have been living in, is that they would always say that nice things about them, like you don't talk about them, and that's it. I mean, like whenever something would happen, I had a lot of things that happened to me as far as my relationship with Jewish people, and I always thought like, you know, no, these people are. I can't think that way because they speak to God, and I mean, I'm talking, and I never said it in a prayer. I never said, and I was even thinking before I understood things like, I would say, they speak directly to God. I mean, that's how. I mean, and I would always say they are punished differently. God speaks to them, and I had no idea what was going on there. But now I understand that there's categories of, because they have just one like term, Jewish, but it's not like, for instance, like with blacks, there's all different kinds of, everybody understands that there's different here. They're sorted in this way. They're sorted in that way. They're sorted in that way. White people, oh, they're sorted this way. They're sorted that way. I mean, Oriental people, oh, it's this and that. But then I said I have to do that to the Jewish also. That's why I'm going to say, when I'm speaking about this, I have to say today's Jewish person, per people. And I had to explain all of that because of the fact that they're very sensitive. Okay. So I got that out the way. So I said that because some of the things I'm going to say in this video is going to break this mold that I had, and a lot of my friends had, because they would always say, oh, anything that the Jewish touch is gold. That's what I always turns to gold and silver. That's the way I was taught. Okay, but it's not that case. So that's why I want to explain some of the things that I'm going to say. For the mere fact of adding different categories to this gay, I mean, why do I keep saying gay? To this, I'm not going to cut it, I'm sorry for saying that, to this topic of Jewish people, okay? So this is how I'm going to put it. Because of the fact that I found a new world in my understanding as far as Jewish people are concerned. And these Jewish people have never been spoken about. And we never relate about these Jewish people. And these are the ones that I believe now that we came from. The reason why I'm saying this is because this topic is going to be on Jesus' Jews and versus Jehovah Witnesses. Since Jehovah Witnesses do take a position as they are the ones that's going to rule the world, or make it into a new system that nobody else is going to make. And then I want to put it versus this new category of Jewish people that I have been studying. I've always knew that they were there, but I couldn't. First of all, one reason why I couldn't see them in my mind when I figured out things, because they wanted no were very humble, and they didn't want to shed any light on themselves. It's the same as the apostles. They didn't want to shed, even Peter, the way he died. They wanted to put him on a cross, and he goes, no, I don't want to be put on a cross like Jesus, although there's other people who've been put on cross, but it's his respect. And back then they really respected Jesus. And that's one thing that I'm going to start out right now. I mean, that's just one point I'm going to bring out right there, as far as these Jews that I'm going to be speaking about. And I had to talk about today's Jews so that we wouldn't, so the listeners that is going to listen to this tape would not mix them up with today's Jews, which I don't want that to happen. So now I'm talking about Jesus's Jews. I have to say Jesus's Jews, and I do want to say I even view them as our forefathers as far as Christians is concerned. Um, and I'm going to touch that point later. So, so Jesus's Jews didn't want that light or uh, that that I don't know how to express it right now. They didn't want to show that they had anything to do with what we see nowadays. They wanted Jesus to have all of the light, okay? Because that's where they learned from. So that's one way that they differ. That's one point I want to make out. To whereas the Jehovah Witnesses say, "Oh, we're Jehovah's Witnesses," you know what I mean? And that's really not. That's really being, can I say haughty? I can't figure out the exact term that I want to use, but that's, how can I say, there's putting light on themselves. That's not humble at all. Saying, oh, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, oh, I'm a Jehovah Witness. You know what I mean? That's if they think that their Jehovah is God, then I would say that that would be very haughty. To whereas the Jesus is Jew, and I have to say Jesus is Jew because they're today's Jew, because I don't want to mix them up, which they have no connection whatsoever. You know what I mean? And out of respect for them, because they did a lot. And another point I want to make is that today's Jews never talk about, and I want to say that as being critical of them, because they never talk about the Jewish people who love Jesus. And that's another thing that hurt us as Christians nowadays. When I say hurt, I mean that's another reason why we never connect historically with the Jesus's Jewish people, because they never talk about them. And that's one reason why I know that today's Jews have no connection with the Jews that worshipped Jesus. And and that's another point that I want to make as far as the Jehovah Witnesses is concerned, that they never mention Jesus's Jews. And that's going to be one new term that I'm making in my vocabulary, is saying Jesus's Jews. Because nowadays we act as if we hear about the people that he helped, but we never put any interest in learning about them and what they did. And these were a lot of people. It was more than 100. It was 100. It was like 99%, but a lot of people don't realize. Which brings me to another point. I think this tape is going to be on more than one tape, because it's a long subject. And maybe I never put part 1, part 2, or part 3, but I think this time I'm going to have to put part 1, part 2, part 3. Because now I set you up to let you know that we're going to talk about Jesus's Jews. And with this new, and this is 19, so it's not even that much time. So now I could get into it further, because I know that I have more time. So now we know that we have Jesus's Jews. What are these people? What did they do? Another point I want to make is, like, nowadays, the Christians that we are now, okay? Those who are Christians, and you don't even have to, when I say Christian, like I've told you before, I mean those Christians who came from Christianity. Anybody who were from Christianity. And a lot of people don't realize from Jesus's point of view, and a lot of people don't realize, yes, a lot, I mean, I'm talking about the 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 Christians, and I'm Jesus's Jews that took over and conquered the the Roman Empire. And a lot of people say it was Christians. Yes, it was Christians, but these Christians were Jewish. And the reason why they didn't want to be termed as Jewish was exactly because of people like today's Jews, to where it is being Jewish, it is an honor, okay? But it's only an honor because we think of it the as Jewish people who actually spoke to Jesus, okay? That's what Christians think, okay? But as far as today's Jews, they don't think about that. But that's the one point to where we have to start breaking up things to bring in this new information about Jesus's Jews, okay? So we have the Jesus's Jews who went through all these problems and stuff. And I'm saying, and I'm not, and I also want to say from the Roman Empire, but also a lot of Jesus's Jews migrated, or when Jesus taught them all those things, a lot of them went into different they could go anywhere they wanted to. That's what Jesus incited into them, because he said he was going to be with them. They didn't have to stay here, they didn't have to stay there. And that's why they were given such a power, and they became like barbarians. Because like we even know when we leave the Jehovah Witness organization, we pretty much become like barbarians, okay? Crazy, you know what I mean? Until we learn how to control all this freedom that we have, mental freedom and spiritual freedom that we have. So I want to stress this point. A lot of them went into Africa. A lot of them didn't want this, like connection with the Roman, being Roman anything, and being like this structure. So a lot of them went freely like barbarians, like I said, and developed tribes and things in Africa. So that's why a lot of African, I just want to say, I want to put Africans and those who settled in the Roman Empire as one type of Jesus's Jews, because another thing I want to state is that God doesn't look at different cultures. He doesn't see people like when they say like Jews. It's not so much being Jews, but he looks at it as a point as far as stemming from Abraham, okay? Like, and a lot of people don't look at it this way also, but it's a timeline, okay? And this is another thing that I see, or that I came up with, or that I see mentally and spiritually, is that there was Abraham, then there was Abraham, then there was Hebrews, which were slaves, and then they had the Israelites, and then they had the Jews, and then now they have the Christians. So it follows Jesus's plan and God's plan, or how he does things, because those of Abraham and those of Hebrews, they were like us. I mean, they were able to communicate with God through prayer, or however we pray to God, or however everybody communicates with God in a certain way, in a different way, their own way. And that's the basic way that Hebrews were, who followed God. And however, there were always these people, and it was important, the rulers, earthly rulers over these people, always had a different kind of aspect as far as God was concerned. Like, for instance, Moses, okay, like he was one of the rulers, just random, rulers at one time of the not Jewish. Now this is different. I'm talking about of the Hebrews, and they're different. Hebrews are different from and there's no land Israel. Okay, forget it. There's a people Israel, but not a land. So there's a Israel, and then there's these are certain time aspects of those who listen to God. Okay, and what I want to say. Okay, so now I was talking about the Hebrews, and okay, so the point is that the people themselves were always communicating and praying with God individually. That's how they knew about Moses. You know what I mean? And that's how they knew that Jesus was coming back. And then you had your rulers who kind of organized things earthly, which you had your high priest and all those other things, but still and yet the people still had it in themselves to speak to understand that there was a God, even during the Jewish times. And I'm saying, that's why I'm saying there was a Jewish times, okay? So these are not Jewish times, these are Christian times. So you can see that I'm breaking up the different layers of times. Like, for instance, now I'm taking Hebrew and saying there was a time when God had Hebrews who communicated with them, and then they had their priests and stuff like that. But that was totally different. That was earthly, okay? But then you had the people, Hebrews, who had communicated with God themselves, okay? And that what solidifies that we as Christians come from that same thing. God developed us into Christians. They're Hebrews, and then we had the Israelites, and they had, like, okay, you had your King David, your King Solomon. Yes, but that was earthly still, okay? But still and yet those individual people stayed the same as we stay today. And I think I'm gonna pretty much end there, and then I'm gonna continue. But you kind of see where I'm going. I don't know if I'm gonna put 1, 2, and 3, but for now, this is about Jesus' Jews versus Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm going to end it right now for now because we're going to keep going with this. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.